Overnight tonight, mostly clear with a low of 42 degrees. For your Good Friday, sunny skies, high of 68. Easter Saturday, chance of morning showers, otherwise clearing throughout the afternoon with a high of 58 degrees. Easter Sunday, it's going to be dry, mostly sunny skies, a little bit chilly though, high of 51 degrees. And then showers back in the forecast for Monday and a high of 53 degrees. That is a look at the news for now. I'm Frank Sparks, Beaver County Radio News. 95.7 FM and 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas. 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and beavercountyradio.com.
.1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas. All right, all the gremlins are gone, and we're back. We're on Facebook, we're on the radio, and Josh Kail is here because it's Rappin with the Reps, 15th District Representative. Were you nervous that when they were switching around all the districts that if they changed you somehow, you'd have to get new business cards?
That's one of those things that you just don't have control over, and can't really get too wound up about things you don't have control over. My new district is pretty similar to the old one. The only thing the disappointment that I had with it all was I lost in losing. I haven't lost it yet, but I'm losing Center Township, which is where my district office is.
Right.
Which my mother graduated from Center. My grandmother still lives there. My aunt still lives there. My cousin lives there. But that's all right. I mean, we'll still be Center with these reps positions. You help a region. It's your district. It's about your region, and I recognize that many people that live in my district work outside of it and need jobs from the area, and so you're trying to help everywhere. It's about the whole county. It's about southwestern Pennsylvania, and so we're going to keep doing the work that we're doing. We're going to keep trying to grow our economy, bring jobs back to this region, and I'm looking forward to representing the new 15th district starting in, I guess it'll be January of 2023.
Well, that's what you said. It hasn't happened yet. How weird is that you're representing a constituency that in a year or so you won't be representing?
Yeah, my district office right now is in a spot where it's not going to be my district.
Right.
It'll be part of where currently Representative Matsey's district.
Can you guys just change leases or something? Now, wait a minute. He's got an office in Ambridge, right?
Yeah, and I would imagine I'm not sure. I haven't talked to him about that. But, we're actively looking for new spots. We'll probably end up. So the district is very, covers a lot of space, put it that way. It goes from northern tip of Beaver County up in the Darlington area, South Beaver Townships, the exact place, all the way down to basically the Greene County border. Not quite, but basically it goes down that far. And it's a long strip of land, and it covers the border of West Virginia and Ohio. And so we're looking at where do we put a district office, and maybe we can because the land mass has grown. We've gone from, for instance, covering 7 school districts to 11 school districts. We've gone from having 28 townships to 40 townships.
And you're also talking about developing relationships with people that you don't have relationships
That's
with.
right.
You're talking about dealing with 4 more school boards, and you're going away from relationships, like you said, that go back to your grandmother's day.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's like starting new in some ways, and that's one of the reasons why we're going to be very active this summer and getting out there and just meeting people. And so we can understand the areas and what their needs are, and it's important for us to do that. But part of that is also finding a place where we can have our new district office. And we're looking at different places in Vanport and Beaver, and that region where it's more centrally located in Beaver County. And then also in Washington County, because of the changes down there, we're looking for changes in certain things as well. So it's going to be a process. It's certainly a change. It's something that happens once every 10 years, and it's part of the process. And we're going to be fine. My district office Staff does a great job, and they're helping out with the process. And I'm looking forward to, getting to know more people.
I'm going to ask you about a different process now. The gas tax, the carbon policy, is it on or is it not on? Am I never paid attention before, and this is a part of the process when there's stuff going back and forth politically? Because literally from one day to the next, this is going to get put in place. Now, this isn't going to get put in place. What's the timeline to find out whether or not it's going to be put in place? And if you don't want it to be, like you've spoken of, what options do you have?
Sure. So ultimately, my best estimation is ultimately the next governor is going to decide on the fate of this. I mean, we could end up coming up with some sort of resolution out of a budgeting process or out of some negotiated terms. That's always possible. I think the most likely scenario is this gets punted to the next governor because we're so close to the governor's race. The Supreme Court and the Commonwealth Court, they're going to play with it for a while, but you know how litigation goes. It could take forever. There's things that pop up. So that's going to be a longer process, and that's why I think it's ultimately going to get pushed into the next governor's decision-making because we only got about 8 months left until we have somebody else getting sworn in.
Who have you heard from about it? Have you heard more from your constituency, or have you heard more from industry? Because
we have heard a lot.
We've got a lot of stake
from
in
industry.
That, have you? Okay.
And we've also heard, and in a different context, people are feeling. People have lives. I mean, they have to work. They go around. They're doing things throughout the day, so they're not just sitting and watching PCN and what we're doing.
Yeah.
But what I hear about and how this is relevant to that, I hear about the issues with inflation. And
the highest
rising,
since 1981.
Yeah, and it's going to get worse. And the rising costs of everything. And it's a real problem. And it's actually, in my estimation, it's the fault of the federal government. You can't infuse that much capital money into society and expect, you can't flood a market with capital and expect it not to get devalued. I mean, that's just kind of how things have happened historically, and it's what's happening now. And that's an issue, I think, where both sides have dropped the ball on, quite honestly, over the course of the last number of years. But that's for another subject. That's talking about federal debt and all this other stuff. But my point is that what I'm getting at is people are upset about inflation. They're upset about rising costs of everything. And once this carbon tax gets implemented...
Thank you for just saying what it is.
Yeah. And once it gets implemented on generators, they're going to see that their electric bill is going to increase. The conservative estimates are by 30%. And they're going to 30%. Like, we look at the gas tax, and people are upset now about an extra 40-some cents on gas. And it's the highest in the nation. They should be upset. I mean, it's you go to Ohio, and it's like something like 40 cents or 30 cents cheaper gas.
Yeah, the second you cross the border. Yeah.
And that's if you look at it compared to prices, that's not going to be very significant when it gets compared to the generation, the carbon tax that we're putting on. 30% increase in a tax is very, very significant.
That's insane.
Yeah, and when that gets into place, and it won't happen probably until next year, if it does happen, when you see that going into place, you are going to see constituents get very, very upset about this going into place. And that's why we're trying to prevent it. It's bad policy, and we've talked about this before. I don't need to beat a dead horse on it, but it's bad policy for a number of reasons, but not the least of which is there's people on fixed income. There's people across this entire Commonwealth that they're trying to make ends meet that really don't want an extra 30% tax on their electricity bills.
Well, it's not that they don't want it, Josh. They can't afford it. Pay it.
They can't afford it. And it's unfortunate that that's the route that the governor has decided to go. But that's where we are. And so right now, yes, industry is making a lot of noise because they're the ones that are going to be paying big prices at manufacturing facilities. and they have the time and resources to send their government affairs people to Harrisburg.
Wait. What's a government affairs person?
Well, someone that represents their interest in Harrisburg.
Yeah.
And so they're out there already watching this process, and they're upset about it. But people that are working every day, focused on their family, focused on what's happening with their kids' T-ball team, focused on the things that really matter, they're not watching quite as closely yet. But they're going to once they see their prices go up. And it's going to be a problem. And it's going to be something that we got to prepare for and keep fighting against, because we have to do everything we can to make sure this doesn't happen. And we are doing everything that we possibly can. And really, ultimately, it's going to come down to the next election.
You talk about it coming down to the next election. I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second. If a Democrat stays in, I'm going to assume that plan would stay in place. And if it does, is there anything once it goes in place that can be undone? Now, second part of the question, how hopeful are you that the current administration will even take phone calls about this?
So the current administration, I'll start there,
okay.
Because we know that answer. The other one is more elusive, but I have a guess. So the current administration is not going to be taking phone calls on this. They started off their administration saying they wanted to work with the legislature to get this done. They had to work with the legislature to get this done. The legislature said this isn't a good idea. And a number of years later, the administration said, well, actually, we don't need to work with the legislature. So they started doing their own thing. And that's they're dead set on doing this, and they're dead set on making this a part of Governor Wolf's quote unquote legacy, which is remarkable that you want your legacy to be about a tax that's going to increase generation costs, increase electric bills by 30%, and do absolutely nothing for carbon emissions. I mean, it's really a wild thought process, but I guess it makes people feel good that they're trying to do something, even though it actually ends up doing absolutely nothing and more harm. But what is missed in this whole discussion, Eddie, we could talk about the bad policy or the good policy, and I know good people disagree with me on that and the energy policy side of things, and that's fine. But what we should all agree on is there is a process in place for this. There's a way by which we do these types of agreements. And every other state that has been entered into RGGI, all 11 of them, have at some point or another had legislative consent to this process.
The people representing the voters said, yes, let's go ahead.
Yes. And it's actually one of the reasons why the governor of Virginia, the new Republican governor of Virginia, is trying to get the state of Virginia out, the Commonwealth of Virginia, out of RGGI, the Regional Greenhouse Gas House Initiative. He's trying to get them out of RGGI, and he's having problems is because the legislature approved of RGGI. And so,
well, exactly. It's the same argument.
Exactly. You can't just single-handedly get out. Yeah. So what the governor's doing is single-handedly going in, and that's why it's going to come down to the next governor and the courts. The courts, they should not allow it, but unfortunately, my guess is this court will allow it because they've been swinging a certain way politically, and it's
5-2.
Yeah, and it should not be a political partisan bench, but it's a very political partisan bench right now. And so that's the why, and if the governor is going to answer phone calls. The other question that was asked was the next governor. Every single Republican candidate has unequivocally stated that they will not allow the Commonwealth to go into RGGI.
Right.
That's a day one thing that you will see.
Platform standard at this point.
That's for a number of reasons. It's bad energy policy. It's bad consumer policy. It just does not make sense across the board, right? So the Attorney General, who is currently the Attorney General, Josh Shapiro, who is running for governor, has actually made some very strange tap dance statements on this. He has said, well, I don't know.
No, wait a minute. How strange does a statement have to be classified in the world of politics as strange? Well, how much further back are we reaching?
So in the world of politics, it wasn't strange at all.
Okay.
But if you were talking to your neighbor and you heard this type of answer to a question, you'd be like, what world is this guy living in?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, in politics, we hear, slippery answers all the time and tap dancing and juggling.
Mm-hmm.
So he has stated that now is not really the time. He doesn't believe now is the time to enter into Reggie, that there's other things that we could do, that I think this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm.
But what he fails to mention is, as Attorney General, you have the ability to deny a regulation and tell the governor to go pound salt. And he had a legal argument to do it, and he should have done it, but he approved those regulations.
And now
so
it's
he's
like,
a part of the process.
I'm against what I let go through.
Well, he was for it. He signed off on it, and
Right.
then he came out and said, well, actually, now's not the right time for it. And then he signed off on it again. So, I mean, he can do his little tap dance, his little juggle, his little, routine, the circus routine that he's doing, playing politics, which he's been a remarkable politician at the AG spot. He's very good at checking boxes and going around having press conferences, but not actually doing his job, which is exactly what people can't stand about politicians.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't need to go down that road. But it's just remarkable how blatant it is on this issue, where he said, I'm for it, and then he, wanted to get support of blue-collar workers who are against it, so he went to them and said, I don't think this is the right time. I'm just the Attorney General. And then he goes off and signs off on it again. So do I think he is going to do anything with it? No, absolutely not. The biggest concern I have with this gentleman running for Attorney General on the Democrat side, and it goes beyond politics. My biggest concern with him is he wants to be president of the United States.
That's his political career path.
This is well,
right.
Documented. It's well known in Harrisburg that he wants to do that. So as soon as he gets in the office, if he were to win, and it's going to be difficult, it's not going to be easy. Now we could screw it up for sure on our side. That's how politics works. It's a comedy of errors. Yeah. But if he were to get in, he would care more about primary voters in California than he would about union members in Pennsylvania, because that's where he wants to go next. He has to win a national Democrat primary in order to get into the White House.
In a big place.
In a big place like California, and then obviously you got other states like Iowa and all that stuff, but everywhere except Pennsylvania. And so he wants to use us as a stepping stone to the next ground. And I just don't think that's acceptable. I want people that are focused on actually doing the job in front of them, that are concerned about, that have the capabilities to do a good job. I'm not overly interested in people that are using it as a political stepping stone to try and get to the top pinnacle of power in the United States, in the world. But that's, long story short, back to the start. If he's concerned about primary voters in California,
right,
then his number one priority is going to be destroying the natural gas industry, destroying Pennsylvania energy, because that's what they care about in California, because they live in a different world as it relates to energy production and what can happen. And
insanity.
Yeah, so my point is that he's going to keep us in Reggie and going to be a horrible governor for issues that matter for this region.
One of the things you mentioned is why some people don't care for politicians. Another reason is graft. And I saw this, the PA House bill, or the PA House passed a bill to prohibit state lawmakers from using state-owned vehicles. How many people are driving loaners that I'm paying for?
So the Republican caucus has banned the practice a number of years ago.
Yeah.
There's not that many on the Democrat caucus either. There's probably now, I would say there's maybe 15.
Okay.
I actually don't know the answer to that because I never even was asked.
No, I know you drive your own vehicle like most human beings when they
I got
go
my
to
2014 work. Ford Expedition with 160,000 miles on. I put 60 of them on the last year or so.
It's just getting broke in.
That's right. I'm hoping to get it to 300.
All right, the state-owned vehicles, do they get a free easy pass to cruise the turnpike for no money and no fines?
I don't think so. I don't think we get reimbursed. We do get reimbursed when we're going out there for session or for a meeting that's legislative in nature.
Well, reimbursed that makes perfect sense.
It gets paid off. I get charged on my my own Easy Pass, and then we have to submit for expenses.
Okay. One other thing that came up, and I just saw this, I think last night. Are drop boxes gone?
So drop boxes should have never have been.
Well, I'm going to get to that. These are the drop boxes that appeared at a time of medical necessity during COVID, right?
That was the argument.
That was. I'm just telling you what we were told when they started showing up. Okay, but there's bills to ban drop boxes, and they're making their way through. And the vote yesterday sent 2 different proposals to the House.
Yes.
And it looked like, I don't remember the numbers, Josh, it looked like it had enough support where even if Governor Wolf vetoes it, the veto can be overridden.
Yeah, so I talked to one of my friends who is a senator. Every once in a while, the House of Commons interacts with the House of Lords, their majesties over there in the Senate.
They go slumming. Yeah.
But I believe they said 37 votes out of 50.
Yeah,
which is remarkable. I mean, that's really saying something. So it's coming over to the House. I feel confident that we will either vote on that or vote on something very similar. But yeah, the drop box situation. A couple of counties across the state, most counties actually said no, we don't do drop boxes because you can't monitor them. Most counties did not allow them, but a couple did, and it was totally outside the rules, but they allowed it because of
the 2019 edict.
Yes.
I believe, it expanded mail-in voting for use by anyone is what it did originally. Is there anything that I should... Oh, I do have one more question. Ken sent it in. Why is the PA death inheritance? See, this is the stuff I envision you having to deal with when you do your town hall meetings.
Yes.
People just come up and go, what the hell's going on? Why is the death inheritance tax so darn high? PA says they want retired people to return to PA to live out their golden years. Inheritance tax rate keeps this from happening.
Yeah, I do think it's
a tough argument to say it costs you money to die.
Yeah, exactly. It's a death tax. So there is a threshold. So you have to reach over a certain amount of resources in order to have to pay the state tax.
Right.
And it's not just the inheritance tax. It's the gas tax. It's the corporate net income tax. It's the fees that we pay on everything. It's the emissions testing. Pennsylvania has a lot of different ways of taxing people that drive people out of this state. And he's right. That's what happens. Tax policy inherently pushes people out. That's why it's regressive. When you raise taxes, you're going to shrink your tax base. And so over time, what we have to be focused on is sound government, running it efficiently, and also cutting taxes, not so much just to starve the state government, but to grow the pie and to have growth in our region, meaning having people come back here, have jobs here, and actually be productive members in Pennsylvania, and then they actually end up paying taxes as well. So you're growing your tax base. And that's the philosophy that we have to have more of in Pennsylvania and in Harrisburg. And unfortunately, we have not had much of that philosophy, particularly coming out of the governor's mansion the last 7 years. And it's something that we got to focus on as we go forward.
Can they not look at the cautionary tales when you look at places like New York? As soon as everything tax-wise jumped up in the state of New York, where did everybody go? They went to Florida. California, there's a whole lot of people that used to live in California that now live in Arizona or
Colorado.
Texas. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really about long-term strategy versus quick fix and short-term gratification. There are a lot of situations where you end up in a pickle and it solves allegedly the problem just to raise the taxes. It solves the immediate problem.
Right.
Where that next year you'll have the revenue to plug the holes. But over time, it drives people out, and then you have that problem perpetuates. And Illinois is the best example. Their legislature, their governors have totally ruined that state.
People, my daughter lives in
It's
Chicago. She's
awful.
about to not live in for the exact reasons we're talking about.
It's awful,
Yep.
and they've ruined the state. And in Pennsylvania, and we're at a crossroads. And I think this next election for governor is really going to show us which direction we're going to go. Because are we going to be like New York, like Illinois, or are we going to be like more like fiscally sound Ohio? Places like North Carolina, Colorado, Texas, West Virginia even is getting their stuff in line. So that's what we're going to decide next election. And
That's shaming what you just did when you say, well, even West Virginia is figuring this out. Pennsylvania has to sit up and go, okay, we need to really think about
West
this.
Virginia, I say even West Virginia is they do have a long history of some very interesting political activity. We'll just put it that way.
That's so polite.
Yeah.
That's why you do what you do. Is there anything
It's
that
almost
you want?
heaven, Eddie.
It's
because it's so close to Beaver County.
That's exactly right. It's heaven adjacent.
That's right.
When you see the world's largest teapot, you're getting close.
Yeah.
Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't ask?
No, it was a good conversation, Eddie. And anytime you want me on and I can come on, I will. I'll be here. I just read an article this week that radio is having a second golden age.
Really?
Where
I got $5 that says it was written by a guy that can't get a job in radio. What was the rationale for the second golden age? You and I have talked about this.
People are more. I agree. I hope they're right. I love radio. I'm growing fonder of it, and it's the same with newspapers. Like I'm dying for a local.
The tactile experience of turning the page on a newspaper.
Yep. And to read about local events. I think, I want to focus on what's happening in my neighborhood. I'm sick of hearing about the nonsense in D.C.
What you just described is rarer than hen's teeth.
Yep.
That's where we're sitting. That's what we do, and that's what it's about. And I don't think, and you and I have talked about it off the air more than once, most people don't have any idea how much this is a diamond in the middle of a coal field. They really don't. See, now I'm feeling nostalgic. Maybe radio has now gotten to the point it's retro.
Yeah.
Yeah? All right, you say you'd do anything to help out with radio?
Whatever you need.
I'm on till noon. Congratulations. Josh Kail will be guest DJing. Let him pull his first hour of music. He'll be back after news.
Hey, it's the Beaver Valley Community Concert Association proudly announcing its remaining 2021-2022 season. Show number 5, Sons of Serendip, Thursday, April 28th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. Sons of Serendip create beautiful music through the use of harp, piano, cello, and voice. Concerts held at the Beaver Falls Middle School Auditorium. For more information, contact Peggy McCullough, 724-846-3203. Please visit our website, www.bbcommunityconcert.org. Adult tickets you can purchase at the door for $20, and for student tickets, $5. That's the Beaver Valley Community Concert Association.
When we walk, when we reach, when we play, we're moving through life. Lately, we haven't been moving enough. An estimated 80% of Americans aren't getting their recommended daily physical activity. This is a health crisis, and the solution is in our hands and our feet. It's on our shoulders. It's on our backs. It's in our souls. It's time to move and keep moving, America. Wherever you are, however you can. Movement reduces your risk of diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. It improves your brain function, pain management, and immune system. And when you need help, physical